Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. As always, Baseball Unstitched here with our weekly wrap-up. Ryan and Evan here, joined today by the one and only Justin Aguiar. For those of you who don't know him, he worked in the data analytics side of baseball with Mississippi State and the Texas Rangers, and we are happy to have him here to talk ball. As always, if you guys are first-time listeners and viewers to our weekly roundup, Baseball Unstitched is the podcast Evan and I run. We'd love to have you guys listen in and find out more. But here's a little taste of what we do on a regular basis. And we're going to start with what we always do. Flax, who are you today on the weekly roundup?
I am Darwin Barney. I don't have any more information to really pass along other than I saw a clip of a highlight of him on like Tuesday, and I thought to myself, this is the name I will be using. I saw another one, but I'm going to save it for next week. And I'm not going to spoil it. Yeah.
Don't give it up. I am the elite 5'6" shortstop himself, David Eckstein. For you guys who did not get to watch David Eckstein's career, I implore you to go watch some David Eckstein tape. You want to talk about a guy who proved very long ago that size did not matter in baseball. He's that guy. Justin, who did you decide to be today?
I went with Omar Infante. Growing up in Atlanta, obviously still a big Braves fan. Was always just something about him. Whenever he played, it just seemed like, he's kind of a solid player. Let me just go see what he does. And yeah, he had a good stretch. Probably his best years were in Kansas City, but I'll give him still some love for being an Atlanta guy. Ryan, to your point on David Eckstein, he is also the epitome of Cardinals devil magic.
Well,
you want to talk about that? Yep.
Listen,
they just need to find a way to find 5'9" and under white guys and just roll them through, and they end up being big catalyst for the team and getting them to the postseason. And
I grew up in an undersized household, and before it was Dustin Pedroia, it was David Eckstein that we just decided was like the guy that made us think that professional baseball was maybe one day possible. It was not, but we thought maybe one day it could be possible. So
my pick's the winner then, because we sat here and talked about David.
Exactly.
We don't need winners and losers, but and to your point of devil magic, he slashed 297, 357, 375 for the Cardinals over 3 years, of which he was an all-star twice.
And a World Series hero.
That's absolutely was. Absolutely was. So roll the tape if you haven't seen all of that. Let's pop right in here to our first topic of the day. And we've watched MLB teams move players around the diamond for a very, very long time. But I think there's something that we need to get out on the table now, and that's the thought process that just because you play a specific position, and most of the time the position we're talking about is shortstop, you can just magically play a very good center field, outfield, so on and so forth. And sure, it's proven right sometimes, but there's been some ugly ones lately too. But let's start with the good here, and that's our old friend Javi Baez that we're talking about in a positive light right now. I'm very happy to say that after the last few years here in Detroit. But that man is looking like he played center field his entire life, and that is just not the case.
I want to say like it's shortstops being athletes, but we'll talk about why that's just not the case. But when you watch him do it, it's smooth. It's not like he's kind of making plays. He looks comfortable. He made that play against the Angels at Angel Stadium on Jorge Soler's fly ball, and I don't know that it technically would have been a home run, but it was at least extra bases, and he was at the track comfortably, found the wall, made a play. There wasn't, kind of lucky running into it. It's been pretty impressive to see just the simplicity with which he makes those plays. Every now and then, he kind of jumps when he catches the ball. I think he overruns the ball coming in a little bit, but that's just learning how physics work, and I don't blame him for not being there quite yet.
Well, too, like also how you're completely different how you see the ball coming at you off the bat. So your reaction time's totally different. How the ball's spinning is totally different. The time you have to track it and all that, and he is Yeah, I agree. He looks like he's been getting reps out there for a few years now. But let's not forget, this isn't the first time that Javi Baez was asked to change positions in his career. You know, he came up with, he was, shortstop, prospect with the crazy big swing and all the bat speed. And they had another guy that, we're not going to talk about because of his character, but they moved Javi over to second, and, he got put on the cover of MLB The Show, and he was El Mago and all of this. And, so it's not, while moving from shortstop to second is nowhere near the difference of moving from infield to outfield, still it's learning a new position, learning the different angles. So just to see him go and, look as comfortable as he does right now is obviously very refreshing. And I think, too, maybe that's also, I don't know, again, he just looks more comfortable. Maybe that's helping a little bit at the plate, too.
I was just about to say, do you think there's a less is more situation where he spent so much time over the last couple of years trying to figure out how to fix his hitting? Mm-hmm. And it was no, we need you to figure out how to play center field and bat ninth. Mm-hmm. And then it was just he got to get in the box and just be an athlete and hit. And now he's seeing the ball better. He's taking better at bats. He doesn't have to think so hard about doing it. He's kind of back where he wants to be as a young hitter, kind of coming up into the league. I don't know, Ryan, what are your thoughts?
Listen, I think that's part of it. I think the big thing that you're seeing from Baez here, though, is he is just naturally a guy who can play in an elite utility position on a baseball field. I think there's a lot to be said about guys who can move around the diamond, but when we say move around the diamond, I'm also talking about transitioning not only from a middle infield spot to the outfield, but playing a corner spot as well, right? Mm-hmm. The biggest person that shows that in the MLB at the current moment is Tommy Edman. We've watched how he's gotten moved around. Another guy on that same roster is Kike Hernandez, who we watched get moved around on a heavy basis, but their ability to play at least a league average, be at least a league average defender at all of those positions sets them apart. I think this is really going to help Baez regardless throughout the rest of his time of which he could stay at the MLB level, right? He's played short, third, and center for the Tigers at the current moment. I think that the Tigers right now see the need for him in center, and I look at that as he says, okay, there's nowhere where you can put me where I'm not going to play at least, again, league average or above for you. I mean, he's proven that already, right? He has a 1 OAA in center field. That's not necessarily the easiest thing to achieve, is what people probably don't realize, right? That's something that could increase throughout the season, but there is probably a correlation to the hitting piece. The ability to be comfortable in the outfield and feel like you're making a difference for your team. I think he's in a good spot is really what this comes down to. I'm happy to see his defense has been as good as it has been. Now, on the flip side, we've also seen the opposite effect for guys. And the main one that people talk about right now is O'Neal Cruz fumbling and bumbling around in center field for the Pittsburgh Pirates. That has not been a pretty change. And I think the more interesting part about it is he flashes what you were talking about earlier, Evan, in that athleticism on a regular basis in the outfield, but it doesn't end up producing a consistent result, maybe is the best way for me to put it.
It's probably the best way to say it, yeah.
Because, listen, the arm still plays out there, but the reads, the jumps, and the ability to make catches on the move are an adventure every time he steps on the field right now.
He hits.
Yeah, I mean, listen.
Listen, you hit
but
the
we're not talking about a first baseman right now, right?
Right.
That's the problem with this that portion, right?
Yes.
We're not talking about the Pete at first base conversation. This is a guy who's playing a premier position on your roster.
If you want to hide his bat, in the field, you don't put him in center field.
In center, absolutely not.
It is hard because the balls that he and a couple other guys in center field keep getting beat on are what I consider the hardest defensive play in baseball, which is a low line drive to an outfielder with backspin. Very early on in spring training and even into the regular season, you saw hard line drives up the middle that he came up and it kind of came up in front of him and he misjudged the hop, went past him, or he came in on it, went over his head. It's a really, really difficult play. I don't want to sit here and say, like, oh, he should have caught everything, because you see some of the best outfielders in baseball make that mistake. But he's making it harder than it has to be, which is why some of his more StatCast-based stats are as bad as they are. You'll see him make a flashy play, and I know for a fact, because all I got to do is watch his jump, and I got to watch the way that he completes the play, that it probably wasn't that hard of a play percentage probability-wise. He probably just took a bad angle, and he probably just got a bad jump on it. Because like you said, Justin, like getting the first read is so different from anything you've normally done as a shortstop. Being able to get that correct first step just comes with time.
And two, we also got to think about, like we were talking about, the extreme athleticism that he brings to the table. So there is maybe that kind of, he's, 6'7", 230, something like that. 240. Sorry.
Don't short him 10 pounds, Justin.
Didn't mean to short him 10 pounds. My apologies to Mr. Cruz. But, you think, hey, this is a giant human being who has unbelievable athleticism. You kind of would hope, maybe he'll figure it out. But it's obviously completely different context. But we think back to, in Moneyball with Ron Washington saying, hey, how hard is it to play first base?
Right.
It's not hard. It's extremely hard.
Right.
That's how every position is at the big league level. So kind of going back to, I guess, the crux of the conversation is, moving a guy around. Oh, he's crazy athletic. Yeah, but that doesn't mean that it's going to translate immediately. You can't expect that. Now, again, with a guy like Tommy Edman and Kike Hernandez, those are outliers, right? The guys that can do that. There's just very few that can bounce around like that.
I also think that one of the things that you look at with Cruz, though, is Cruz truly does profile, regardless of how athletic he is, he profiles as a right fielder.
Yes.
He profiles as a right fielder from literally the fact that he's got a cannon, the fact that he has a relatively negative OAA on a consistent basis, and it's just what it is. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I foresee him sticking in center if his success rates are as low as they are at that position. I think you could find somebody else to help you defensively. But at the same time, as Flax did mention, we're talking about a guy who's slashing 243, 377, and 505 in the slugging department, right? His baseball savant page is how do you say gross? And just for the viewers, we will share the baseball savant page so everybody
it's red.
can see.
Oh my goodness!
He does lead Major League Baseball in 3 different categories on that list, but this is also our point to why we bring up transitioning players to different positions and where they fit, right? Right now, when he's hitting like this, they can kind of live with the defense, even though it's in center field. However, from a projection standpoint of their lineup long term, he's not a guy you're going to leave in center field. And if he's a guy who truly believes playing the field helps him at the dish, you're going to find somewhere for him because he's, again, an athlete. So O'Neal Cruz is a fun one to talk about. He's been blistering hot at the plate, which is probably what everybody would prefer to hear about him, but we're here talking about his defense. So.
I just don't know who else you put in center field if you're...
I don't know that you do right now, right?
Yeah.
That's also part of the composition of your lineup and your roster, right? If there's no better option, there's no better option, and that is what it is right now. But there can be no better option when you're at the bottom of your current division after April. And I don't say that poorly because that roster could turn around very quickly with the arms that they have and the bats that they have. But
the problem is they do have guys in the minor leagues. The bigger issue is the fact that they're just not developing the way you'd want them to develop.
Sure.
Right? You'd love to put a Jack Sawinski in center field, maybe instead of an O'Neal Cruz, but Sawinski's offense isn't developing the way you'd like it to develop, and so you'd rather have that bat make a few mistakes in center field, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think the offense speaks for itself, and you're also talking about a guy who's going to steal 30-plus bases.
Yeah, well, another guy that it makes me think of where we look at the athleticism and we think to ourselves, well, this guy could play anywhere, is Willie Castro. Everybody talks about, oh yeah, Willie Castro, Willie Castro, Willie Castro, he can play anywhere. Well, you can put him anywhere, but I don't know that he's necessarily going to service you well anywhere. Like, his defensive numbers are not good in the outfield. He's mainly a pretty solid third baseman when it's all said and done.
Sure.
The problem is the way that team's made up and the fact that you have plenty of guys missing from that outfield. It's actually wild that, he obviously really played the outfield a lot when Buxton has been hurt. You could put him in right. You probably can't put him in right if Buxton's not in center, because it totally changes what everybody else gets to do. But I think about that, like, every team I feel like has a guy that they think we could put him anywhere, because everyone's trying to work within the roster limit and make sure they have a guy on the team who gives them versatility. It's just not always available. Yeah. And I think that it's just something that, like, we recognize when we watch it over and over again. But teams are willing to give up a few missed plays here and there because they feel like they have some flexibility in roster. But, again, like we talked about, if a guy hits, you can hide him anywhere. It really shouldn't matter, especially if they're slugging over 500.
I also think that's the big distinction here, too. When you look at what the Pirates are doing with O'Neal Cruz, it's not because they think he can play every position, right? I think that's a fair statement for us to, like, look at, right? O'Neal Cruz is in center because that's where he fits in the lineup. Willie Castro, on the other hand, has had a dreadful start to the season offensively, which is unfortunate compared to what he was looking like at the end of last season, of course, when he was trending heavily upward. But when you can potentially play, again, league average, X amount of positions, it's just going to help you find a way on a roster spot. Everybody's looking for guys like this, right? People were so confused why Colorado traded straight up 1-for-1 Nolan Jones for Tyler Freeman. Why did they do it? Because Tyler Freeman could play every position on the field outside of catcher at a competent level.
Yep.
Right? And having one guy on your roster who can do that in a league that is full of injuries and inconsistencies is more important, right? Dylan Moore has been on that friggin' Mariners roster for the last 4 years in some capacity.
Yep.
Why? Because Dylan Moore can continue to play everything.
Hey, now, Dylan Moore's been pounding the baseball.
I know he has.
That
this
away
year
from
has
him.
been different. I'm not. That's not a knock on Dylan Moore. But to be fair, Dylan Moore got his opportunity by sticking around.
Yes.
Through his ability to play 7 positions.
Dylan Moore, also a guy that was with me my first year with the Rangers, and I would like to say I confidently said, yeah, that guy will make the big leagues one day. So
love that.
Glad he did. But yeah, no, agreed. He even in minor leagues, Dylan was getting, hey, you're gonna go play left. You're gonna play second. You're playing third today. You're playing, and he also I think probably just got really used to it, and it was all right. Yeah, sure. Wherever they put me in the lineup, as long as I'm in the lineup,
right?
Fine. And
did he take that well too from an approach perspective? Did it ever bother him?
No, I don't think so, because he never profiled as a big league shortstop by any means.
Sure.
So I think it was kind of a, hey, we're going to have you move around a bit. You're going to play some second. You're going to play third. You're going to try you out in the outfield. And he took it in stride. And obviously it's paid off well for him. He's been collecting a big league paycheck now for 4 seasons, so I can't be too mad at him for that.
Yeah, never a bad thing.
I like that part of the conversation, though. I think it is super important to have a utility man in some way, shape, or form on your roster, probably more than people give it credit for. You just don't know who's going to go down, when they're going to go down. It's part of the game anymore, and I think you're seeing more teams looking at guys with versatility. Again, I hate that I'm bringing up the Dodgers for the 3rd time in this live here, but they've got 4 guys who can play just about every position on the field, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, listen, if you're going to use somebody who puts together and curates a pretty well-rounded roster, they're probably the best example you could use right now. The only other one I would say would maybe be the Red Sox.
Yeah.
But the Red Sox built a pipeline to do that. Shout out Heimblum. But he did do a great job of putting together a pipeline of guys who are extremely athletic and who do profile to play premier positions but also be successful elsewhere around the diamond. And now you're starting to see it. The one thing I don't think that they have in spades is first baseman, which is really unfortunate given their current situation.
Tristan, yeah.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe Yoshida can play first.
Did you guys watch that movie Moneyball when Ron Washington said
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, I'm hearing things again.
First base. First base is easy to play.
Yeah,
That's why they've never put me there.
I have a pretty easy argument for the Red Sox. His name is Roman Anthony, and it doesn't matter where you put him; just put him in your lineup.
Well, sure, yes, but offense is not something that they're having a problem with right now. The bullpen is a bigger deal. But also, if you want a good first baseman at a low cost, obviously not league minimum, go sign Anthony Rizzo. Like, he's just sitting there. All he's got to do is cover you a gap until you figure out what's going on in your minor leagues. If he's really bad and you figure it out, DFA him.
Yep.
Like, it seems like an easy option in my mind, but I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot out there that you could do here. Roman Anthony coming up is never a bad choice. But
I'm simply making the point that if you don't think you can take that athletic center fielder and find somewhere for him to be on the diamond and put somebody at first, their roster composition is good enough that somebody could move there. You know what?
You think Willier can play there?
I'm sure he can.
Yeah.
He looks good when he's out there. Now, the problem with Willier is Willier's already in a platoon situation, right? He's not hitting against left-handed hitters. So you are left-handed pitchers, I'm sorry. You would not want him to be the move option because now you technically have to replace one guy at first with two, right?
Yeah.
That's why I bring up the fact that, like, Roman Anthony plays all three outfield positions. You can probably bring somebody in from the outfield. You could probably move somebody in from a corner. I mean, hey, here's Rafi Big Scoops' chance. It's just what it is.
Yeah, they did bring up Abraham Toro as the replacement with Casas going to the 10-day. So you could be onto something that Toro's Bregman's backup and Rafi gets his chance at first base. I think it's the most logical move.
I think you got to give him a shot there.
Yeah,
I'm just throwing that out there. At some
you
point in time, you got to give him a flyer at first.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Who played first base today?
That's a great question.
Romy Gonzalez?
Romy Gonzalez.
I don't know if he did or not. It's possible. I don't know if he's on the active or
that
that's just the depth chart.
That would check out. Let's go to.
That feels like he'd be the right guy.
Can we throw this up real quick for everybody? I just want to. This is a really good opportunity for us to remind people that we were stressed about Rafael Devers' ability to hit. At the end of May.
That was funny.
It was Romy Gonzalez, by the way.
Guys, I'm not even like, you don't have to be
Good
the
deal.
analytics guy loving the Savant page here, right? Like, just his normal production stats, he's now slashing 250, 370, and 441, 811 OPS. There was just no stress, and this is where I bring this up not to be like, oh my God, I can't believe people thought that he wasn't going to be well or do well. Let's just all stop and remember that this is baseball. And guys are going to have these streaks where they're awful. And it has nothing to do with anything they're doing other than the fact that they're not seeing the ball, their timing's slightly off. It is part of the game, and it happens. And, yeah, put him at first base. See what the hell happens.
Let's also not forget that just hitting a baseball in general at the big league level
hard.
is very, 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 very hard to do.
Yeah. That little thing. You know, it's so fascinating to me. And this is my ADHD brain just trailing off because I saw something on the page there. His bat speed's low, but I don't think that that's unusual for him. I think that's not like Adley Rutschman has low bat speed. And I was looking this up. The squared up percentage is basically, a ball is squared up if it meets 80% of the potential exit velocity given your bat speed. So it's more apropos to who you are as an individual hitter, what your bat speed is generally, and how important that is to the way you put the ball in play. Both of those are pretty low for Rafi, even though his hard hit percentage and his barrel percentage, which are more based on like league numbers, hitting a ball over a certain mile per hour at a certain launch angle, are really, really, really good, which A, kind of confuses me, but B, makes me just kind of point to his spray chart, and you had it up, and I wanted to say real quick, he goes gap to gap. Like, look how few balls are from shortstop and second base over to the foul lines. Like, almost nothing.
Yep.
Which is, like, you get so many balls put in play as a hitter. If you hit a ball down the lines, they're usually hits. which tells me he's not hitting the ball that way. He's so gap to gap. And I think like that and backspin, which we still need batted ball spin data. And I can't understand how we don't have it yet.
I agree.
But I bet it would tell us that Ravi Devers backspins the ball like you wouldn't believe. So that's the apple crate I'm standing on tonight.
That's your
about
TED Talk
Ravi
tonight?
Devers. Yeah, welcome to my TED Talk.
Well,
Thanks
the thing
for
is, too, kind of talking on that, of like the spin, the batted ball spin. One will tell us quality of contact a lot better.
Yeah.
Because just because you hit the ball, at a certain exit velocity, at certain angles, and all of that, yeah, you might have hit it well, but did you really, going back to the squared up, did you square it up? Did you backspin it? Did you get on top of it? So on and so forth. But then, too, that can also be things that, going to our original point of defense, and especially with outfield defense, you can bring that information into it. Like, oh, he's having trouble with top spun baseballs. He's having trouble with, there's so many different ways we can go with all of that.
The applicability of batted ball spin rate is more than just how it comes out offensively. Is where you're going, and I couldn't agree more. Right, I also think you would see a change of approach in how hitters work in the offseason if they have a better understanding of how consistently they're top spinning a ball comparatively to what result they want. We see right-handed hitters seem to struggle the most with that compared to lefties when it comes to top spinning baseballs, just due to the fact that they've got the right-on-right matchup on a more consistent basis with the types of pitches that are thrown. So I think there's a lot to learn from it, right? And then, again, spinning it all back to Rafi Devers, 28 years old. He's on a pretty mega contract with the Red Sox right now. Guy rakes. He's got an opportunity here, or what I think will be an opportunity here to potentially play first base. We'll see how he takes it. We will see how he takes it. Let's move over. Go ahead.
We'll see how Romy Gonzalez does at first base.
Well, that we will.
Also, just one quick before we jump over. Speaking of first basemen and guys that are just like, okay, where's this coming from? Can I just say Paul Goldschmidt just going complete power outage? And it's like, you know what? I don't really, we're not going to worry about power anymore. We're just going to hit.
Listen, if they're gonna put him at the top of the order,
right?
Get on base for Aaron Judge.
Exactly.
I
just want to throw that out there.
It's such a great example of a veteran ball player seeing what's in front of him. Like, he knows what his contact tool is. He knows the ballpark he's playing in. He seems to be so much more focused on hitting really solid balls and letting it do whatever it does, because he truly just needs to get on base for Aaron Judge.
He's not the guy anymore.
If he's on base, if he leads off 60% of those games, is on base for 35 to 40% of Aaron Judge's home runs, that lift in and of itself would be massive for the Yankees offense.
Listen, you're talking about a guy who currently right now is running at the lowest K rate of his career. He's got a 4.14 average on balls in play, which, by the way, by my math,
that's super sustainable.
Listen, that's pretty sick too, because by my math, even in his best season, he's currently 18 points better, right? And I get it, it's only April, but the point is there is a heavy approach change here for Goldschmidt. And hitting at the top of the lineup, he understands that, listen, he's got 3 home runs right now. Let's not pretend like his power's just gone.
Right.
Right? But the best part is we're not looking at Goldschmidt to hit 30. Goldschmidt hits 15 to 20, and he's on base around he has a on base percentage of around 400. Flax is right here. He's going to end up scoring, 30 more runs than he did the year before without any problem, because Judge will just hammer him home.
Yep.
A lot of walking. I mean, that's sick. I'd love to be in that spot. Oh, there it goes again.
So since July 20th of last year, because I want to just say this, that it's not just April. Since July 20th of 2024, slash line 299, 345, 482, with a WOBA of 356 and a 132 WRC plus. A very, very, very above average hitter from July on last year, which, by the way, everything except for March to July 19th, that's pretty much what he's been his whole career.
Yeah,
Like, it was a blip in his career that he was bad, and everybody thought the sky was falling, and the Yankees were like, "Nah, we'll have him."
Take a flyer.
Yeah.
379 career WOBA, and his now getting old down year also, by the way, was a 310, which is exactly league average.
Yeah.
For a guy who is, correct me if I'm wrong. Let's see, how old is he now?
I haven't seen it, but I'm gonna guess 34.
Goldschmidt? No, he's older than that.
Is he?
Justin,
He's got to be pushing 40, isn't he?
He is 37 years old.
Ooh, right in the middle. Okay.
Yeah, right in the middle. You guys missed the mark by 3 years exactly.
Dang, I'll tell you what. I turned 30 this weekend. 37 doesn't feel that old to me.
No. Hey, man, I'm 32, so it's coming.
But if you asked me right now if I wanted to play 162 baseball games in 185 days, I'd probably look at you like you had 10 heads. So
yeah, but then
God,
also you'd see that big league minimum paycheck.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I'd suck it up.
do it for half big league minimum.
Yeah, right. That's exactly right.
Listen, I'm a huge Nationals fan. I made the comment the other day. They can pay me half what they're paying league minimum to do the same thing as some of the relievers have been doing lately. I hate it. I really hate that. Listen, that's not me even talking crap about him, because it's hard to be a big league pitcher, but unfortunately the bullpen's just hasn't been good, and we've lost a lot of games. But we brought in Andrew Chafin, so that Fu Manchu's gonna bring us back. Let me tell you what. Right off his tractor, apparently, too, just so you guys know.
Jackson Rutledge, Andrew Chafin, Cole Henry, and Finnegan.
Jose Ferrer.
No, don't say that name.
He was great today.
Okay. So Alex wasn't watching. That's all I need to know.
He was, believe it or not. He was.
So when you look at those four guys, those four guys pitch for you in games when the offense keeps you in a ball game and the starting pitcher keeps you in a ball game, and then you've got five other guys that pitch when you're not. I don't hate that for the Nationals.
I'm not fighting. Listen, this is early season baseball. We watch relief arms get shuffled in and out, especially at the early stages of the season, until three or four guys really solidify them. 3 or 4 guys really solidify themselves, and you start to see the back end of a bullpen be created. Very rarely is the back end of your bullpen hammered home the right way within the first 2 months of the season.
I want someone to go grab Jesse Chavez just so that the Braves can't.
Just so they can't.
Yeah, just so they can't.
Braves Jesse Chavez is different than any other team.
You want to talk about a use case, dude?
Yeah.
He's
Let's see. I'm gonna get on Baseball Reference.
Here's
it's even
the
better
use
than
case on Jesse
it's
Chavez.
even better than Jurickson Profar hitting in a Padres uniform.
You're correct, which is crazy. Jesse Chavez in 6 seasons with the Atlanta Braves has a 3.13 ERA and a 1.217 WHIP. The next closest. Guys, you're both wrong. It turns out the most elite Jesse Chavez is Chicago Cubs Jesse Chavez, who has a 1.18 ERA and an 0.896 WHIP. Outside of that,
what was the time frame?
Yeah.
2 years.
What are the games? What are the games?
Yeah, okay, you're right.
That's what I want to see.
It was only 35 games. You got me there. But it was fun. I had to try.
Well, yeah.
You
extrapolate, that 35 out, or that, what do you say, 2 years? Yeah, give him 4 more, see if he keeps that up for.
All we're really saying here is Chicago Cubs. You guys might be missing out on an opportunity here, because it turns out Jesse Chavez is also elite in your uniform.
Tell you what, they could use it. Got a couple guys that just went down. Justin Steele, Shota Imanaga, hamstring pulled. It's an odd injury for a pitcher in my mind. But I don't put it past Shota.
I also think the Cubs offense is so electric right now that there's not much else to talk about. I think that so ironically, if we're being honest here, the Cubs are doing exactly what we said with the hurt pitching staff, that what we expected and hoped the Orioles would do this year. They're hitting their way out of these situations, right? When you have 3 guys go yard against Paul Skeens in 1 inning, that's not going to happen on a regular basis. But not only did that happen, it's 3 of your most important guys to your roster who did it, in Tucker, Suzuki, and Swanson, right? You talked about Dansby Swanson a little bit earlier today, Flax. He's always available. He is the ultimate always available guy. Everybody gets frustrated about his production or his slow starts or some of these minor streaks where he's not hitting well. He consistently plays a very good shortstop for you, and he is consistently available. He hits 7 for the rest of his career. He's worth that contract, believe it or not. It's the Cubs are more dangerous than people probably realize, and Kyle Tucker being an even better version of himself is what it looks like right now at the plate, is propelling that team to new potential heights.
Per Fangraphs, Dansby Swanson has played 2 of his best years defensively of his career since getting to Chicago. His last year in Atlanta was his best with a 22 defensive WAR, which is crazy. But it's
a nuts number.
Remember who they brought in to be their infield coach at that point too. Well, Ron Washington.
Is it easy? Sorry, I was thinking about first base again.
Yeah. No, there is a positional adjustment, obviously, with shortstop. But I mean, the fact that Dansby Swanson's already a 1.4 defensive WAR this year when he's hitting 215, like, tells you he does a really good job of not transferring it across sides of the ball, and that's really, really, really difficult to do in general. A guy that, like, I see all the time is Gunnar Henderson, who has a lot of things to work on at shortstop. When his offense isn't going right, his defense also sometimes doesn't go right, and that's not what you want, right? But at the same time, when Gunnar Henderson's offense is going right, his defense is elite. That's also great, but we got to find a way to split that down the middle, and Dansby does that really well. It's also why at some point when the weather warms up in Chicago, Dansby's going to be a beast, and there's most likely going to be somebody of the group of PCA, Ian Happ, Kyle Tucker, Seiya Suzuki who slow down a bit, and as long as Dansby picks up with that, or picks up for that, their offense is going to be just fine. Doesn't have to be the best offense in the world. There's some things I do worry about with them, but we're talking about that tomorrow on the podcast, so I don't want to talk about it too much. But if you are listening to the live stream right now and you want to hear some of our better conversations, things that are a little bit more structured, go check out our podcast. It's on Apple, it's on Spotify, it's on YouTube. We have a new episode out right now. New one coming out on Tuesday this week. Little shameless plug.
I know what I'll be listening to tomorrow when I'm running through all my reports. So
we appreciate you. Yeah, little preview of this week's episode, guys. We're going to be talking about the offseason acquisitions that have paid dividends early in the season. And additionally, too, we are going to talk about some of those teams that have had surprise starts through the first month of the season. And the Cubs did make that list because we know most of you didn't actually probably realize how good the Cubs could be this year. And, well, by golly, are they ever showing out. So I
was on the same boat with the Cubs, and all the people here in St. Louis were not fans of me telling them. I'm like, I think the Cubs are going to be pretty good this year. I don't know why you're all holding back on them, but it is St. Louis, so
I guess you can't blame them. Interdivision rival, right?
You know what I really think happened was I think a lot of people got swept up in the idea of Jed Hoyer's on a contract year, so he's shelling out to try and win it all right now. Mm-hmm. They also got swept up in Cam Smith being a really good prospect that got given away. Isaac Paredes, who they had just traded for and given guys up for, traded away. Getting Kyle Tucker on a 1 year. How good could Kyle Tucker really be? How good is PCA really going to be? What's his ceiling? And I think a lot of those things, more than anything, were just people held such low expectations. And so the idea was it probably won't be anywhere near as good as we think it is. Also, your staff is headlined behind Shota with Jamison Taillon, Ben Brown, and Justin Steele. Mm-hmm. I don't know that screams dominant.
But it doesn't scream dominant because of the type of pitcher they are, right? Which
100%.
We've talked about as a fallacy.
Yes, 100%, right? Like this is pure perception. But like these are the things of perception, right? It's not Paul Skeens, Jared Jones, Mitch Keller, and then maybe Bubba Chandler comes up soon too.
Which that Pirates team might have gotten more play. Let's be clear. Like there was a point in time where this offseason people were talking about the Pirates team being a top 2 team in that division just because of the arms.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. But who is a top 2 team in that division that we were very high on purely because of one singular signing, and he doesn't even play, and that's the Reds.
That is the Reds.
Yeah, but health has been good, right? Like
so far,
Matt McClain, draft 2-time first rounder.
We did figure that out, didn't we?
Which is crazy. To be a 2-time first rounder as a hitter is insane.
Yeah.
To pass up the first round once and then say, nah, I'm still going to just go show out and be really good and maintain my draft stock and or raise it and then still get drafted in the first round again is pretty insane.
It's ballsy. Ballsier than I am. That's for sure.
Yeah.
No, look, and you look up and down that lineup, they've got a lot of really good young ball players across the board. I think one of the things that's been interesting is Jaime Candelario not necessarily looking like himself, right? He's a portion of this lineup and roster who, one, is a veteran, and two, we all know has more in the tank than hitting 113 like he is right now. So I look at somebody like that as more of a boost to them as the season goes on because he's going to regress towards his mean. He's been a professional hitter his entire career, hitting from both sides of the plate. You know, he does get the platoon split every time he walks up. And then to boot, I know he just got hurt, but we also just watched them bring up Austin Hayes, and Austin Hayes said, here's 5 bombs. Like, having veterans that can come up and help your roster like that, who...
Yeah, I knew it. I mean...
You know,
I knew his IL stint was coming.
Yeah, well, it does. But if he comes back healthy and he hits 5 home runs and slashes what he was slashing, he's going to be a big part of that offense. The Reds are such an interesting use case because they're the definition of everything Tito did in Cleveland. It's how do you take a young group of guys and get them to play at the highest possible level you can for the lack of experience that they have. And what's currently happening, Novelli Marte is raking, and Tito's acting like it's just another day at the ballpark. The right thing to do in reality, right? Show a guy that it's just about being there, right? Mm-hmm. TJ Friedel is starting to really find his footing. Tyler Stevenson is finally back healthy, and he had 2 doubles in his debut back.
Spencer Steer.
100%. You want to talk about another guy who great example of our conversation earlier, a guy that they'll put anywhere. And Steer is again, league average defender everywhere he plays. Maybe he wouldn't say that, but I don't mean, that's not a slight. That is a really, really hard thing to do.
Oh, that's a huge
compliment.
I like to think so. But
do you want to know who I think is really the I don't want to call him the saving grace, but holy smokes, where the heck did this come from? Or is he really still playing this well? Jose Trevino is slashing 319, 359, and 528. What are we talking about? We knew what he was, but he just keeps doing it.
The Reds got trashed for that move, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Let's bring up quick that the Reds gave up a very, very good arm in Fernando Cruz, who throws the best splitter in all of baseball. No, it's not Rocky's, it's his, believe it or not.
Yep.
As crazy as that may sound to people. And everybody said, what in the world are they doing? Well, here's Trevino being a veteran presence on a young ball club that needs it. He's raking behind the plate, and we all know Jose Trevino is a more than equipped defender for them to catch a young
That's what I was going to say.
Young electric staff.
And I was gonna ask you, Justin. I know you are a pitching guy by trade. Obviously, Hunter Green's a lot of fun on that staff, but thoughts on guys like Nick Lodolo, Andrew Abbott? I think the two of them as lefties in that rotation are so fun to watch.
Yeah,
they are. Nick Lodolo is so fascinating to me, and I always say this. It's the most frustrating thing in the world to me to see a guy like Nick Lodolo, and you get away with this a little bit because he's left-handed, but 6'6", 215, and he throws the same fastball as Tomoyuki Sugano, and all I want is for him to throw hard.
Yep.
He's 6'6". Use your lever.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Yeah, you would think, but some of those guys with those long levers, for whatever reason, just can't get the leverage down, can't really tap into that strength that you would think. So he might just be one of those use cases where he's just, for whatever reason, mechanically or whatever shortcomings he might have, in how he moves, whatever reason, just can't quite get that.
The good news for him. Extra. The good news for him is that even though it's an average extension, he's still getting almost 6.5 feet down the mound. He's making 93 look a little harder.
Yep.
But he uses it well, and it's coming from a big body.
And his, too, is more of how he releases and everything. Because from how he releases, I would never really expect, even if he did throw extremely hard, I just would not put a guy with that kind of arm angle and how that ball comes out to be that, kind of riding really up on you. You think of like I'm not saying he, is this, but when you think of, it's very hard to do that. Like Josh Hader, how he can get the fastball to act that way from that arm angle is ridiculous.
That's
very, 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 very few guys can do that. So I think for him, just being able to get more run, add some sink, because then if you, again, when you get an extension out there, that 93 plays, a tick or two up, and now it's moving a little bit more, it's running in on guys or it's running away from guys, it can still be effective. But he's a fun one to watch. I've always, he was at TCU the year that I was at Mississippi State in 19, and
okay.
It was, he was the bigger draft prospect out of between him and then my buddy Ethan Small, but two completely different pitchers when you really looked at it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally agree. Like watching him is so fun just because he does have that big frame, and again, like we were saying, like he's got the big frame, but he's not throwing in the upper 90s. And it does throw you off sometimes when you look and you're like, oh, that was only 93?
When you're in the when you're in the box against a guy like that, and it doesn't necessarily jump on you the way you thought, and it's just kind of dipping and diving. I was just looking this up. He has increased his changeup usage, and it's a firm changeup. It's throwing at like 87, 88 miles an hour, which for only being 6 miles an hour off your average fastball is kind of an odd deviation. But he's slowing down the sinker usage and using the changeup a little bit more. The run value on it has skyrocketed.
What's he doing?
I think one of the big things
look at his baseball reference real quick.
Yeah, please do.
When I look at that change for him, and when you look at his profile, right now, for anybody who doesn't know, he throws at a 15-degree angle. So a 15-degree angle. Let me give everybody a reference point that the 100% know. When you think about Chris Sale, last year Chris Sale was throwing at an 11 degree angle, so 4 degrees higher than that if you're just slotting him from the left side. Try to give you a look that you might be familiar with. His current arsenal is a 4-seam fastball, a curveball, a changeup, and a sinker. The usage percentages in that order specifically. The pitch he's throwing the most is his fastball at 30%. We're talking about, though, 3 groups of pitches that all have the same arm side run movement profile, right? Except each of those pitches, the fastball, the sinker, and the changeup in that order, have less and less quote-unquote vertical run or vertical break. So to me, what that says is he's purposely using those 3 pitches, mixing those pitches in. Sinkers, probably, like you said, mainly throwing to left-handed batters. 4-seam fastballs mainly to the right-handed batters because he doesn't want the sink moving towards the barrel. But that changeup being directly under those 2 pitches when it comes to how it breaks is probably the best look, especially for a guy who's already not throwing that hard, and guys already probably feel like, from a timing perspective, they can jump on his fastball, right? It's making it more aggressive, and they're now susceptible to the arm side changeup.
So looking at his Savant page and getting down to the actual induced movement, his changeup, and this is not it's not much different between this year and last year, but it's just still remarkable. His induced vertical break on his changeup is 1 inch.
Yep. Low IVB changeups, baby. They cause swings and misses.
And 17.2 inches of horizontal.
Yeah, it's gross.
So it's
Which is
around
actually-
it's around the same horizontal as he's throwing the sinker and the fastball,
Correct.
but it's
But
on a
he's
completely different
losing-
plane.
His fastball's got 9.4
This is what I was
inches.
just saying. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
Oh my
exactly. It's just I did not realize it was a 1 on the IVP.
Like I said, low IVB changeups.
Yep.
For everybody who's listening, if you learned something tonight, low number IVB changeups are changeups that are considered to be more swing and miss. Now, the only problem with a low IVB changeup is it's susceptible to be hit very, very, very far.
Yes.
That's the catch.
He throws it in the zone, I think it's 45% of the time right now. But the other thing that's crazy that he's doing and why he can throw it in the zone so much, 10% across the board put away pitches. 10% or more across the board put away pitches. Which means Trevino or whoever is calling pitches is mixing his stuff so freaking well. They are allowing him to use his off-speed early in the count, and then he's probably leveraging the fastball to sneak it up on guys. Very, very similar to what a guy like Max Fried does. We're starting to see Kate Povich do it. It's what a lot of softer throwing lefties are able to do really well with a fastball that he can get swings and misses up in the zone. Doesn't have to be high IVB as long as it's changing eye levels, mixing well, and being thrown at points in time when you wouldn't necessarily think a fastball's coming, which it seems like he's doing.
His overarching swing percentage that he's producing off of batters is higher this year. It's up 5 full points from 46.4% to 51.7%. So he's definitely inducing more swings by being around the zone. It has lowered his whiff percentage, but that's not super surprising. Again, we're talking about a guy who is looking to get soft contact, right? Lodolo can absolutely run a strikeout number. Don't get me wrong. But running up a strikeout number partially for him is the fact that he comes from this angle from the left side, that when his stuff is on that day, it is simply just hard to hit. It's just part of baseball, right?
I've seen him do it against the Orioles. I know he can do it.
Yep. And speaking too to like staying in the zone and trying to get soft contact, he's rocking his lowest career walk percentage right now. He's at 4%.
So I know we got really deep into Lodolo, but I also want to remind people that Rhett Lauder is like going to be back this month.
Oh yeah.
For those of you who don't know who Rhett Lauder is, he was their 7th overall pick in the 2023 draft. Pitched at Wake Forest, was an extremely, extremely good arm out of Wake Forest. And last year, in 6 games started at the major league level, he threw to the tune of a 1.17 ERA.
That'll
Struck
play.
out 22 batters over 30 innings. Lauder is what we call a pitcher. So there is a lot of things on the horizon for the Cincinnati Reds. You're going to hear us again talk more about this on this week's episode of Baseball Unstitched on Tuesday. So definitely make it by. Justin, before we get too deep here and close this out, we wanted to give you some space here to talk about two of your favorite former Mississippi State players in Jake Mangum and JT Ginn. Let the people know about these two gentlemen and tell us more.
Yeah, well, the thing they have in common right now is they're both hurt, so gotta love that. But that's baseball, right? We just talked about, guys are gonna get hurt, things are gonna happen. But one, talking about Jake, what a start!
Yeah,
and I am in the same boat that a lot of Mississippi State people were in when he finally got called up and started producing. And people are like, oh, this Mangum kid's pretty good.
Yeah, duh.
Like, what? We've been saying that but he didn't check, and this is not a slight against Jake by any means, but he didn't check the all the different prospect boxes, right? He was a 4-year college guy. He was so he got drafted old, even though, but he's 29 now, but he had that tag on him. He didn't hit for a lot of power. He didn't walk all that much. Pretty much what his batting average was going to be right around where his on base was. But he's a terror on the base paths. He can play. Going back to our first point, he can play every single outfield position, and play him at a high level. But he just has this knack about him of control of the barrel and being able to put a good swing on a pitch regardless of where it's at. And it might not be where, you would think, oh, maybe you shouldn't swing in the situation. No, if he thinks he can get the barrel on it, he's going to swing. And it's just been obviously really fun to watch. I think we're seeing his impact more, in the intangibles, I think. Just how fired up he gets and how it seems like the Rays were playing while he was there, just firing up those guys, which is not anything that is new for me or anyone that's ever been around Jake. And then speaking on JT, man, what we just spoke earlier about, getting drafted in the first round, turning it down. Well, JT drafted in the first round out of high school, turns it down, comes Mississippi State, and probably would have been a first rounder again if he hadn't blown out his elbow his second year in college, but still got first round money as a second rounder. Grinded his way through, and big thing for him is his velo. It seems like it's back to pre-TJ times. He's no longer in like kind of the 92, 94 range. It seems like he's getting back up into 4s, 5s, 6s. Hate that he went down with some discomfort, but hopefully it's nothing serious. But yeah, those guys, everything they did in college, I could foresee them doing in the big league. So it's just a lot of fun to watch them do it.
The first day Jake Mangum was on the IL, and I haven't seen, so I don't know if he's still been doing this, but the first day he was on the bench in full uniform.
That's Jake.
And like jersey, everything, not wearing a BP top, and like it's a culture thing. Mm-hmm. Where when a guy like that shows up and shows how important it is to him that he's on a big league roster, that you're going to have to take the jersey off his back, everyone else plays like it. It feels that way to everyone else on the field. He has a knack for going places and winning. He has a knack for showing up and the team getting better, which is what he did when he came up to the Rays on the 30th, right? Like they just started playing better because he was playing well, but also he creates that atmosphere where they do have a fun, jovial kind of atmosphere and culture that team already creates, but like the level of care and the level of importance that it carries for him to get to be a part of things there, to show up, to get to put the jersey on is so evident. Yeah. And I feel like you kind of see the guys around him do the same. Not that they've lost that, and like they're just struggling at the plate right now, and having another bat like him in the lineup would be nice. But he still brings that even when he's not in the lineup, which not every guy does.
And Jake, too, speaking of kind of, you're going to have to take this jersey off me. His sophomore year, he broke his right hand. And instead of saying, oh, he's going to be out for – he just said, okay, well, I'm just not going to switch hit anymore. I'm just going to hit one side of the plate, and just kept playing. And, that's just how – that's who he was. That's who he is. That year the team was extremely hurt on the mound, and he had to go out and throw some midweek games and even throw some weekend games. And it was, again – hey, you're going to have to take this jersey off me, because if you're telling me I got to go out there and play and I got to go out there and pitch, I'm doing it. So
I love that.
That's the guy he is, and that's how he is with everything.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love both those guys, but I also love Mississippi State as a whole. I'm a big we talked about this. I'm a Tennessee fan, but listen, Mississippi State just, it feels like a lot of times they play the game the right way. Some of the best fans in college baseball. That's not a shock that they produce some of the best players when it comes to guys that make their way to the big leagues.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, there you go. For anybody not aware of what Jake Mangum was doing or have not been aware of JT, again, little inside info from our buddy over here, Justin. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us. That hour went as fast as that hour always seems to go. Don't forget to follow us on X and Twitter. Go give some love to Justin as well. He is always posting baseball content and will be interacting with us on multiple different occasions. As always, we remind everybody, if you enjoyed the content you saw here today, please listen to the podcast dropping every single Tuesday on your favorite listening platform, Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. We appreciate everybody for being here. And we'll be looking forward to talking to you guys this week and next Sunday as well. Have a great week of baseball.